I call it creative paralysis, where it's almost as though there's too many ideas in my head and I'm constantly adding more ideas on top. And I don't know where to start at times. It's kind of taking that first step, recording that first clip, taking that first photo sometimes is the hardest thing to do. But when you do it, then you get going and it just flows.
Hello, and welcome to the SheClicks Women in Photography podcast. I'm Angela Nicholson, and I'm the founder of SheClicks, which is a community for female photographers. In these podcasts, I talk with women in the photographic industry to hear about their experiences, what drives them, and how they got to where they are now. This episode is with Courtney Victoria, a landscape and outdoor photographer based in the southwest of England. Courtney's creative journey began with fine art and theatre design, but it was while living in South Korea that she discovered her love for landscape photography. Now known for her YouTube channel, Courtney shares her process and passion for finding beauty in everyday places, encouraging others to connect with nature through photography. Hi, Courtney. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. It's really lovely to have the opportunity to chat with you.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
You're very welcome. So let's kick things off by hearing about what piqued your interest first in photography.
So I got into photography while I was at university, actually. So it was a while back now. Or at least it feels like a very long time ago. And so I went to Aberystwyth University to study fine art and scenography and theatre design. And I actually wanted to be a costume designer. That was sort of my goal in life, my passion. And art was something I just wanted to do on the side while I studied theatre. And art is something I had enjoyed for many, many years, but I never really had found that one medium that I could kind of sink my teeth into, get really excited about, something that I could click with and just invest myself in creatively. And when you do art courses through sort of GCSE level and A levels and university, they take you through sort of every term you tackle a different medium of art, graphite, life drawing, and then you do, types of printing or clay work. And it was my first semester of my first year of university, and we did darkroom photography. So one day I went in, and somebody pressed a film camera into my hand and said, go take photos. And I remember thinking, of what and how? I had no idea how to use this film camera, all these sort of dials and numbers on. I was just thinking, I don't have a clue what to do here. So I went and took photos, and surprisingly, a few came out okay, not too overexposed or underexposed. And I was taught how to process and develop the negatives and use an enlarger to make photos. And I remember just holding this photo that I had made and just being really excited about it. And this passion just immediately developed. It just kind of, that's where the click happened. And I thought, yes, this is what I need to be doing. This is what I want to do. And I actually ended up majoring in photography by the last year of university, which when I look back was a questionable choice because I had all of this knowledge and skill and experience in costume design, and I pretty much just pushed that away, focused on photography where I actually didn't have a lot of skill or experience, but I just knew that, okay, this is what I have to be doing, this is what I need to do, this is what I want to go into, and at some point in my life, photography is going to be a big part of it. And so I just essentially took a leap of faith and just went for it. And, here I am now. It has surprisingly worked out.
Excellent. Did you actually change course, or was it, the modules you selected that made the decision?
Yeah, it was the modules that I selected that made the decision. So I was doing the joint honours, and I think it was the second year, I just went down to a single honours degree instead, and then chose photography as the main module that I was going to work on throughout the rest of my time at university. Again, a questionable decision potentially, but
what sort of thing did you photograph at that time?
So at the time, I was working with black and white images, and I really didn't know what it was that I wanted to photograph. I'd photograph pretty much anything and anything, and the course itself didn't really teach photography. So I wasn't taught how to compose, I wasn't taught how to, expose and use all the camera settings that I had to pick up by myself as I went. It was more sort of pick a theme and run with it and see what happens, get it creative, get experimental with it. And a lot of my art degree was sort of history based as well, sort of researching and learning from previous artists. So I ended up actually going into sort of working with negatives and experimenting with breaking them down and manipulating them. with the theme of, does an image actually hold memory or not? And I can't remember exactly what the conclusion I came to. I wrote an essay with it. It was so long ago. But that was essentially what I worked with. And I worked with people and faces, and just sort of pushed the boundaries of what I could do with a negative, essentially.
And what is it about photography, do you think, that really kind of floats your boat? What made you want to pursue it?
Well, that's a good question. I want to say two things really that come to mind. One being able to physically hold something that I had created. And I think the second was the process of photography. The journey to get to the point where I was physically holding an image or physically looking at an image, and sort of the experimentation and techniques along the way, and the various things that I could do to create different types of images, I think is what drew me in.
Yeah. Obviously, you were on your course and you kind of made the decision to become a photographer. But how did you actually translate that into a career?
That took many years, and it has kind of happened by accident. So when I graduated university, I still didn't know exactly what I was going to do with this degree. And I actually remember one of my last lectures, one of the professors there said, you're probably never going to use this. And I remember thinking, okay, great.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So, I graduated and I just got a job working in a camera shop, sort of developing negatives and then selling cameras essentially to people. And the town that I lived in at the time didn't really have huge sort of career prospects for that kind of field. And so I did feel stuck for a while. And I made what probably sounds like a very random decision one year to move to South Korea and
does sound
teach.
Quite random.
Yes, which is photography to teaching. But teaching was something that I was interested in. It had been a career that I had considered often in the past, but never really decided, yes, that's what I need to go towards. It was, an option if I got bored, I guess, or was a bit stuck. But I went to go teach English as a second language in South Korea for a few years. And it was there that I developed the passion for landscape photography specifically. And while I was exploring that, I was starting to share my work online a bit more and start sort of social media and all that kind of thing. And from there, it just snowballed into integrating that with video and then slowly developing a small audience, which has now led to being full-time. So whether I'm a full-time photographer is kind of questionable, because technically I'm a content creator and a photographer. I'm a hybrid mix there.
What made you choose South Korea?
I had a few friends that knew of people who went to teach there. So originally I was thinking of Japan, because Japan had been a country that I'd wanted to travel to for many, many years. But I knew a few people that had gone over to Korea and really, really enjoyed it. And I remember thinking, okay, South Korea is not really a country that I know a lot about. So I sort of did a bit of research and I thought, let's just dive into it and see what happens. Take a leap of faith and just go for it, really. And turns out I absolutely loved being out there. It's a fantastic country, lovely people, and the landscape, the nature is absolutely beautiful. They're very, very different.
Yes. Was there ever a sort of turning point for you where you suddenly realised, actually, I can make this a career?
Yes, and I think that took a while. Like many people, I get the imposter syndrome. Where, you don't want to think, yes, this is going to be something, just in case it's not.
Yeah.
But I stayed out in South Korea for about 4 years, and I had to come back in the end due to the pandemic. And so I had to sort of leave my job and come back to the UK, which was not a planned thing. It just had to happen. And so I really didn't have a plan in place of, okay, what am I going to do now? And so I just sort of stuck with content creation and just popping my work on the internet, essentially. And I got to a point, I think with my YouTube channel, I hit 10,000 subscribers and got sort of my first brand deal, I guess. And that's when I thought, this is something that could earn me money and I could do this full time, and I have managed to do so since.
Yeah, great. That first brand deal, did you search it out? Did you pitch to someone, or did they find you and they liked what you were doing?
I was very lucky. It came to me. Again, with that imposter syndrome, I was really hesitant to reach out to people and say, look, this is what I do. Would you like to collaborate with that? So yeah, that first brand deal came to me, and it gave me some confidence, but also terrified me at the same time, because it made me realize, okay, I've hit the next stage of whatever this is, this unplanned sort of career that is slowly happening. And one, I don't know where to go from here. Two, how do I make this sustainable? And three, now I've realized how many people are looking at me. And that's quite a terrifying thing. When you think of if 10,000 people were in one room and staring at one of your photos or a video you had made, you'd be terrified.
Yes. Yeah, I can understand, because it's an additional pressure while you're kind of working in this little black hole, essentially. Okay, there are people subscribing, there are people watching, but you don't really realize it until somebody actually reaches out to you and says, hey, we love what you're doing.
Yes, absolutely. They'll come to you with a very specific, we love how you do this. And then you think, oh yeah, I've never really thought that that's how I would describe how I did that. So yeah, it definitely brought on some sort of self-awareness and self-evaluation.
You suddenly start defining yourself by the way that somebody else has defined you. Oh yes, I do that.
Yeah.
Please excuse this interruption. This episode is brought to you by Seawe, Europe's leading photo printing company, and their hero product, the Seawe Photo Book, that is the proud recipient of the Which Best Buy Award. You know those thousands of photos sitting on your phone or hard drive? With a Seawe Photo Book, you can turn your memories into a beautiful, high-quality album that you'll want to show off. Every page is fully customizable, and you can pick from a range of sizes, finishes and layouts, designing every detail with their easy-to-use editor or let their smart assistant help. So if you're ready to do something real with your photos, head over to seawe.co.uk. That's cewe.co.uk. Okay, let's get back to the show. You mentioned imposter syndrome a couple of times. Has there ever been any times when you thought, no, actually, I've got this wrong, I'm going to do something else, I'm going to change career?
A few times, yes. I feel like I go through waves of this. I think that's times where it gets a bit stressful, and that could just be stress from the job, but it could be life stress involved, like general life as well. But yeah, there are times where I sort of panic and I think, is this where I want to be taking this? Or am I good enough? All these people are watching me, but is it really good enough? Should I be doing something that contributes a bit more to society? These kind of thoughts do pop in every so often. And it's really important then to sort of ground myself and say, okay, this is actually why I'm doing this. Yeah. And it's okay. And just sort of bring myself back to that root.
Yeah. So that's what gets you through it.
Yeah.
Just reminding yourself. Yeah. And I think also, what you do, you help other people discover photography and understand their passion more and connect with nature, because that's one of your themes. And that actually is a very good thing to do. Yes.
Yeah. I think there's this general idea in society and how we live where you have to contribute in some specific way. And, this is where the arts, fine art careers and things tend to be looked down upon, don't they? Because what are you actually bringing? But actually art and, motivation, inspiring people, creativity is very important to the way that we live. So yeah, it's amazing that if I can inspire or motivate one person, that's absolutely incredible, to be honest. And through my work, I get inspired and motivated by other people as well. So it's good for me as well.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned your sponsorship deal that you had that first sort of gave you that boost. But obviously, unless it was absolutely massive, that's not going to sustain you for a long time. So how do you make your income generally throughout the year?
So I have various streams of income, and the main being sort of the YouTube, the ad revenue, the sponsorship. And then I've brought in workshops as well, which has been bringing in money. And, it's lots of small little jobs. I'll get hired for presentations and workshops for other people. And I recently released an ebook, so that's brought in a tiny bit of income as well, which has been great. So it's, in a way, you are constantly sort of finding new streams, new ways of doing what it is that you do that will bring in income, because unfortunately paying your bills is something that is quite important.
They're always there.
Yes, they are. So in all complete honesty, at the moment it's the YouTube that is really sort of boosting things at the moment.
Oh, great. I think it takes a certain mindset, doesn't it, to be able to cope with that pressure of, saying, right, there's no one thing which is bringing in the equivalent of a whole salary. But when you add all these things that you're doing together, that, it's a living. And other people would far rather know that they can go to work from 9 to 5 and get that income. And it might be a very fulfilling job, but it's also a certain amount of comfort. Whereas, you're always kind of just looking at the bank balance and making sure everything's okay.
Yes, it's not for the weak, I think. Some months you are thinking, oh gosh, this payment didn't come in time, or I didn't earn, so much this month because this video didn't do well. It's really easy to kind of get trapped in the anxiety of that. But I mean, if I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't do it. And there are also perks of working for myself as well. And I completely understand those that have the 9 to 5 within a job or a company and are happy with that. And going back to, do I ever think of doing something different? There are times where I think if I just went and got my 9 to 5 and earn a stable income, then maybe I would be able to travel more and do different types of photography because I would have that sort of stability. But, it's a risk, and it's a risk at the moment that I'm absolutely willing to take. And if it gets to a point where it's not sustainable, then that's absolutely fine. It is what it is. But at least I gave it a go and I knew.
Yeah, and you've got all sorts of experience along the way. But what would you say is the number one perk, the thing that you really enjoy about working for yourself or being a professional content creator or photographer?
I can run with any idea that I want, and I can be outdoors in nature, and especially in the forest, whenever I want. And I'm not, constricted to that 9 to 5. So if I just want to pop out on a Wednesday afternoon at 3 p.m. and just go and sit in the forest with my camera and a macro lens, and I can go and do that. So yeah, in a way, it's stressful to create my own deadlines because it's very easy to relax with yourself and say, no, I'll just do that tomorrow. No, it's fine, I'll do that tomorrow. But at the same time, I can be flexible and essentially just do as I please.
There must be a huge amount of satisfaction as well when you hit that publish button and it goes live and you start to see the views coming in and the thumbs up.
To a point, yes. I mean, I don't tend to focus on that. Usually I will post something and I've spent a while, especially if it's a video, I've spent a while working on it, filming it, editing it, checking it, editing photos for it. And so by the time I'm sort of popping it online, I'm almost kind of done with it. Okay, I've done that. And now I'm ready to move on to the next thing. And so when it goes, up on YouTube or the internet, I don't sit and check the views or the comments, obsessively. It's at some point I'll go to it and see, okay, what do people think of this? What suggestions, what criticism do they have that would be useful for me? But generally, I just kind of move on to the next thing that it is that I want to do and just keep that creativity and energy flowing. And I think it's terrible to get hooked on the views and the likes of sitting and, has somebody viewed it yet? Has somebody liked it yet? It's not a good way to approach it.
But it is still nice when you press that publish button and that is a complete piece of work. That's a project that you've finished.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Generally, I feel quite proud of it. I created this and off it goes. Sort of like setting a ship to sail, isn't it? Off it goes. It works. It happened. It was complete. Yeah, it's satisfying. And instead, I then just sort of get excited and go, okay, the next thing. What can I do next?
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask about that. Do you ever feel under pressure with the content creation? You're sort of like you need this beast that you need to feed. Are you sometimes thinking, oh, I've got no ideas, or do things constantly come to mind that you want to move on and it's out more? I've got to get this finished so I can start on this new project I'm really interested in.
I find that ideas is not a problem. I have so many ideas. In fact, I do a lot of journaling. So I write down things that project ideas, things I'm thinking, work through things. The ideas is not a problem. There is, when you really look at the outdoors and nature. It's unlimited subject material to photograph and to explore. That's not a problem. Usually it's the weather that gets in the way when it comes to filming. Sometimes it's I call it creative paralysis, where it's almost as though there's too many ideas in my head and I'm constantly adding more ideas on top. And I don't know where to start at times. It's kind of taking that first step, recording that first clip, taking that first photo sometimes is the hardest thing to do. But when you do it, then you get going and it just flows. So I'd say that is what I struggle with most usually.
Oh, it's interesting you mentioned the paralysis, because I was thinking about, you shoot a lot of macro photography, and that's fantastic because there are subjects all over the place. It's very easy to find something to photograph. But how do you decide what to photograph when you've got so many things?
That's the question. Discipline.
Okay.
One of my favorite exercises is to limit myself to a particular space when I'm out with a macro lens, because otherwise I will just walk around, and I tend to walk around without the camera out first, just to see what I can find and kind of get into a state of mindfulness and curiosity, and get into that sort of seeing state and forget that I'm there to take photos, sort of take that pressure off. And I find when you're curious, that's when you spot all of these tiny little interesting subjects and stories. So I'll do that first, and then I'll limit myself if I haven't really come up with a specific, okay, I must photograph this one thing specifically. I'll limit myself to a small patch of woodland or forest wherever I am. And that could just be, a few meters either side of me. It could just be literally by my feet. And that's where I've decided I'm going to sit and I will photograph something here. And if I ever sit or am looking around and I can't see anything to photograph, I know that I'm not seeing properly. And I'm not in the right frame of mind, because there is always something to photograph. You just have to take the time to see it. So yeah, instead of running around and absolutely panicking because I've spotted 100 things, I just limit myself to a specific small space and tell myself, okay, we're working here and we're seeing what stories are in this space here right now.
That's really interesting. I think that's a really great approach. And it's almost like forcing yourself to find something and then get photographing. But you said sometimes you think, oh, well, I'm just not looking hard enough. How do you address that?
That's where I guess the mindfulness comes in of photography. If I am not looking hard enough, I'm usually distracted by something. My mind is on something else,
Right.
Daily life, I'm stressed, I'm anxious about something. I'm not in that frame of mind to see stories, to see color and shape and light, and sort of just taking a moment to sit and breathe and just take in my surroundings and enjoy wherever it is that I am. Usually just sort of relaxes me into that mode. Macro photography especially is you need a slow approach for it. You can't rush it. And if I'm rushing it, then I'm not going to see anything. So usually it's a problem with me. And I tell myself, okay, what's going on in my mind right now that is creating a block here that isn't allowing me to see and be curious. So usually I'll take a moment just to kind of work through that, whether it's just sitting and thinking, putting some music on in my headphones, having a dance, taking a little walk around, whatever it is that sort of gets me into the right mind.
Do you find that your journaling helps you clear things out of your mind?
Yes, my brain it never shuts up. It is noisy. There's multiple channels going constantly of various things. And I personally find writing down my thoughts is incredibly helpful. I think that's because it's a visual thing. I can physically see on paper what on earth is going on in my brain, and I can sort of separate thoughts and go, okay, this isn't quite right, or I'm focused on this. So yes, I've always got a small pocket journal in my camera bag, and when I go out, and just taking a moment sometimes just to sit and sort of write down my thoughts, whether they're coherent or not, is incredibly useful.
Yes. I guess sometimes when you write things down, it stops you being anxious about forgetting it.
Yes.
So you can just move on then.
Yes, it's on paper. You can physically see it as evidence.
You're not going to forget that. So you run workshops. How did you start, or why did you start running workshops?
Running workshops came from the love of teaching. I think I really enjoyed teaching English as a second language. And I taught sort of elementary age out in South Korea, so sort of primary age to high school here. And there was just something wonderful about teaching in a creative way rather than just sort of shoving information at people, be like, read that and go do it. But also seeing people take in information and be able to apply it and then get excited that they've learned something or managed to achieve something. And so I think that has inspired me to teach workshops as well. And also just the social aspect of workshops is something that people really, really enjoy, getting together with like-minded people. You know, we all see in different ways, so we are all able to pick up ideas from each other as well. But yeah, I think that stemmed from the teaching specifically. And I hesitated for a long time in doing workshops because I was incredibly aware that I was a young woman and sort of the landscape photography field tends to be quite male dominated a lot of the time. So I was very aware that, you know, I'm going to go and pop myself somewhere in nature with a bunch of strange men who I don't know, and I have to make sure that I'm safe.
Yeah.
And, you know, that I have processes and plans in place, and I really need to think about this. So it took me a while to develop the confidence to do that. And, you know, the places that I choose to do workshops I choose those very specifically because they are by main trails, say in the forest where lots of people are walking by, and I have phone signals and I can, you know, get to people if I need to. And, you know, people know that I'm there and they can come and help for any reason if I needed it. So it's something that I had to put a lot of thought into and build the confidence to go and do that.
Yeah. So it was more the confidence of about the safety issues or the health and safety issues than, for example, thinking, well, why will people book me? Because there's all these other people doing it. It wasn't an imposter syndrome thing. It was more the health and safety.
No. It was the safety aspect that absolutely made me hesitate to begin with. I mean, in terms of people who book, you know, there are some fantastic photographers out there that, you know, their skill is beyond what I do. And, you know, they do their workshops and, you know, it's great for them. It's successful and absolutely fantastic for them. And I wasn't really, you know, those who want to come on my workshops will come on my workshops. It's sort of, in terms of growing an audience for my work, I don't need the entire world to be looking at it. You know, they say that you only need sort of 1,000 people, I think that the quote is, to sort of invest in you, and you can make a career from that if they're willing to invest in you. So a small audience is absolutely perfectly fine. And the main thing with that is encouraging what I say is my tribe to my work, the right people who resonate with what it is that I do and how I do it. And so naturally, those people will find me, and if they want to join in workshops, then they will. And so, you know, it is one of those, it is what it is. People come to workshops or they don't.
I think that's a really important point to remember, actually. You don't have to have the whole world following you. It's the people that connect with you.
Yes.
And the great thing is about a relatively small audience is that you connect with them in a way that just works for everybody. And so you kind of think, oh, these people will love this workshop or they'll love to go there. And you can develop things with people specifically in mind, which is something that, you know, large corporations often have their ideal customer, you know, whatever their name, they give them a name and they try and pitch everything to them so that they can try and have that contact, which they don't really have.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's, I think this is a newer thing that's sort of come out of the woodworks of the benefit of, you know, the micro audience or, you know, whatever the term is for it, and micro influencers and that kind of thing, where they have a small audience, but it's more loyal because it's people who are taking the time to invest in. They've not come to you and your work and seen, okay, you've got millions of people watching and liking you, so I'm going to like you too because you obviously must be good. You know, people are taking the time to see what it is that you do and then invest in it.
Yeah. Now, you were an ambassador for Case and for Vanguard. How did that come around?
So for Vanguard, another Vanguard ambassador, Matt Watkins, spotted, I think it was Matt, one of the other Vanguard ambassadors spotted that I was using a Vanguard tripod. And I'd been using Vanguard tripods for a really long time. And they basically reached out and said, we're looking for ambassadors, and specifically more female ambassadors as well. And would you like to come and chat with us? And at the time, the photography show at the NEC Birmingham was coming up. So I popped over to their stand to have a chat. And they're absolutely lovely group of people.
Yes.
It's like a small little family. And yeah, I joined them from there. With ambassadorship, at least with mine, there's no sort of paid thing happening. It's more of a, I'm invested in your project or your work, and we can help each other in some way here. And again, with Case, that I think I've been with them for about 1.5 years now. And again, that was at the photography show, just going over and chatting to Andrew Yu, and just having a conversation face to face and seeing, okay, is this going to work? Are we sort of on the same page? And I'm just going from there.
Great. I think it's really nice that another ambassador recommended you, but it doesn't really surprise me, because I think that the photographic industry generally is pretty supportive. And if they see someone doing great work, they don't think, oh God, I've got to, I mustn't let them be seen. They're very keen to help you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. People are absolutely lovely. Anybody who I chat to within the photography community, always so nice and happy to help, happy to offer, hey, try this. This is how I do this. Everyone's very, shares their journey. And this is how we all learn from each other and grow together. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what advice would you give to any other women who are thinking about starting out in photography or videography, how they find their voice?
The first thing I would say is just do it. If you are constantly overthinking getting started, you're never going to get started. Even if you don't think you've found what it is you want to say or do, you'll find that along the way. As you go on this kind of creative journey, the things that motivate you, inspire you, are going to change as you go, and you're going to find out new things about yourself and whatever it is that you're sort of talking about or exploring. But the first thing is just to do it. Just get over that initial hurdle of fear and just go for it, because you're never going to be perfect to begin with. You could practice as much as you want in front of a camera, with your settings and photography. But if you're going to wait until you're perfect, you're never going to get there, because perfection doesn't exist. Nothing's perfect. Nobody's perfect. And so just start, and things will keep moving from there. Things will start growing. Things will start snowballing. And it's just that initial hurdle, I think, that really makes people hesitate. And, when I first started off on camera making videos, I was too scared to speak. At a normal level, I would sort of whisper, and you couldn't hear a thing that I said.
Right.
And it took me a while to gain that confidence to where I could speak normally. And I got to a point where I actually was so excited, this confidence that I had grown, that you would speak too loud. I was constantly sort of lowering the volume of my voice. And I've managed to sort of level out the excitement now. But, I started off and was absolutely terrible, but it doesn't matter, because that's a part of the journey. It's part of the process and the growth, really.
And you've got to find out what you're good at as well, and think, I'm not very good at those videos, but actually this one, that sort of style, that works really well.
Absolutely, yeah. It's finding your voice, finding your style, and that may change as you move and grow. So, yeah, you don't know until you try.
No. Great advice. Okay, thank you. Well, I think it's a really good time to go to 6 from SheClicks. I've got 10 questions from SheClickers. I would like you to answer 6 questions, please, by picking numbers from 1 to 10. So could I have your first number, please?
Oh, I'm going to go with 6.
Number 6. What are your current professional ambitions? That's from several people.
Oh, gosh, that's a good question. Ooh.
So what can we expect to see from you in 12 months or more?
Oh gosh, 12 months, maybe not 12 months. One of my biggest goals, which is going to take longer than 12 months, is a very typical photographer's route of creating a book.
Right.
Yes. So I've had the idea in my mind for a very long time, and it's going to be called The Woods Are Alive. And essentially it's just going to be a collection over possibly years of just all of the different ecosystems and layers of the woodland and the forest, from the actual tree characters to, streams and the soil ecosystems and insects and animals. And I think it would be, I'd be very proud of myself if I could just sort of collect years worth of sort of portfolio work, I guess, and just pop that together in this sort of book, this story that sort of flows naturally and just sort of takes you through my view, my perspective, the way I see the forest, essentially. So that's my long-term photography goal.
Sounds like a great one.
Yeah. Hopefully I get that.
Have you got a picture in mind of how you're going to lay it out, or, where you'll get started or anything?
Not yet. At the moment, I'm diving into insect photography, which I think is sort of the next layer of what the book will be. And so at the moment, I'm sort of hesitant to start putting images sort of in a sequence because I know that I'm going to create more images and then possibly add them in somewhere as well. So I think I'll get to a point where I have a certain amount of images within a portfolio of images that I'm incredibly happy with, incredibly proud of, ones that I would print and hang on my wall and show everybody, but like, look, I did this, and then start sort of popping them together in a sequence.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, could I have your second number, please?
Ooh, 4.
Do you ever go out without a camera just to look for subjects, or do you always have a camera with you?
Good question. Technically, I always have a camera with me because I have my phone with me.
Right, yeah.
Then they do say that the best camera that you have is the one that you have with you at the time.
It's very true.
Yes. I do go out quite often without my camera. A part of what I do is genuinely the enjoyment of being outdoors and loving nature. And, with how the way that life is these days, I find it very important to go for walks and just go and surround myself in the places that I feel inspired by and calm, the places that I love. So absolutely, I go out just to go and enjoy nature. Sometimes it's to scout, and sometimes leaving the camera at home just takes that pressure off, and I don't feel the need that I must take at least one photo today. And I can go out. And I always find that when I go out without my camera, that's when I find things that I want to photograph. And I typically don't have my camera with me. But it gives me ideas for the future of, okay, I can come back here and do this.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's something fleeting, you think, goodness, there's a red squirrel with a butterfly on its nose. I'm never going to see that again. But at least you kind of know where the red squirrel was. So it might be there again.
It might happen again. You never know.
Okay. Could I have your third number, please?
Number 9.
Number 9. What's your number one tip for getting started with shooting video?
A number one tip.
Obviously, aside from just shoot.
Yeah, apart from that, we've already covered that. So it depends on what they were doing video for, I guess. If you were using it to promote a business or sort of do a similar thing that I do, so for maybe a semi-professional reason or a professional reason, or you just genuinely want to get invested in video and learn more about it, camera angles is one of the big things that I recommend you research into. It doesn't take long. There are some fantastic videos on YouTube from videographers. And it just takes you through all the different camera angles that you can shoot at. And there are more than you think, and they produce different sort of emotions, some of them. And swapping camera angles within a video sequence can really elevate the story and make it that a bit more interesting to watch. So that would be my tips, to look into camera angles and the different ways that you can get creative with your framing and composition.
I think that's a really good point, because it's very easy. If you're doing something like you're doing, videoing a subject, like, some fungi that you've been photographing and talking about how you're photographing it, it's very easy just to kind of have the camera static in one place, looking at the thing the whole time while you talk. And it's basically a still.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And you see it with people when they've got a GoPro and they stick it on their heads and go ski down a slope. And it's just a really nauseating bit of footage. But if you sort of do it 2 or 3 times and you shoot from different angles and put it together, you get a much more dynamic, interesting video that people actually want to watch.
Yeah, it feels more exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Okay. So your fourth number, please.
Number 1.
What technical aspect of photography did you find the most difficult to grasp, and why? That question's from Carrie.
Oh, interesting. At the beginning of my photography journey, when I was learning how to use a camera, it was being manually exposing, being on sort of I learned how to use the shutter speed and then learned how depth of field worked, and going to full manual was tricky initially. I think that's tricky for a lot of people. And with that, you just have to keep practicing and you figure it out as you go. It's one of those, how all these different, your ISO works, how the shutter speed works. It's just applying all those things together through practice. So that was probably the first hurdle that I came across. And the second, I would say, would be dealing with depth of field in macro photography to begin with was tricky, and specifically learning to focus bracket and stack my images so that I could get a scene, for example, a mushroom in focus sort of all the way through. And I think it took me about a week of consistent practice to learn how to do that and gain confidence in, okay, yes, I've got this down and I can do this now without thinking. And with that, you're not just thinking about the depth of field, you have to think about stability when it comes to, you're taking multiple images. It can be up to, 50, 60 images of the subject and popping them all together with dedicated macro software. If one of those images or a couple of those images within the stack are slightly off in some way, you've moved the camera or the light changed dramatically, it can completely just throw that stack off, and it might be useless. You might be able to recover it, you might not. So sort of learning the steps that I would need to take to ensure that a macro image would come out successfully was certainly challenging at first.
Okay. Can I have your fifth number, please?
Number 5.
What's your favourite or most useful accessory for macro photography? And several people ask that.
That's a good one. I find macro photography, I take more kit out with me than I do with any other type of photography, which baffled me at first. I would say a tripod for the stability. As I said, stability is a must, a need if you are sort of focus bracketing or focus stack. Even if you're taking a single shot image, when you're dealing with macro photography, not only is your subject magnified, so is any movement or vibration or shake. And if you sort of frame a subject up and then very gently move the focus ring on your lens, you can see the huge amount of vibration that you're actually causing. That vibration is the difference between actually getting an image and not getting an image. So something that stabilizes the camera, whether it's a beanbag or a tripod, is most used tool and the tool that I would recommend. I use a lot of sort of LED lighting in my work, and in the end, I would happily go out with just my camera and a tripod, and I would still come away with macro images that I enjoy. Yeah. Any other accessories or sort of doohickeys that I take out are just kind of add-ons, really.
Yes. Have you ever used the light on your phone to add a bit of light when you've left your LEDs at home?
I have tried before, but it's very harsh lighting. And so I would rather have to resort to exposure bracketing or something ridiculous like that, and making the post-processing process just ridiculously tedious for myself. But it is, it's an option, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Could I have your last number, please?
Ooh, number 7.
Number 7. Do you have a bucket list of places that you'd like to explore? That is from Mariange.
That's a good question. Absolutely. And everywhere. The entire world, to be honest.
That's quite a big bucket then.
Yeah, which I think all of us would probably agree on that, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yes, in terms of abroad, my dream trip would be New Zealand. And actually, I am currently potentially putting together a 3-week trip next spring in the South Island, sort of from Queenstown over to Christchurch, a bit of a small road trip. So that may become a reality next year, and I'm very excited about that. And I imagine I will not want to leave. But otherwise, yes. In terms of the UK, it would be great to get up to Scotland, I think, at some point for landscape photography. And sort of the dramatic, atmospheric landscapes up there would be a wonderful change. So yes, I'm going to go with New Zealand and Scotland.
Fantastic. Great choices. I'm going to Glencoe in October, actually, so I'm really looking forward to that. That's going to be great. Yes. That's for a workshop. But if you go to New Zealand, you have a great time, do you think you might put on some workshops down there? Not on that trip, but in the future trips.
Potentially. Yes. Yeah, maybe. I feel like I would need to travel there a few times before. I like to know an area pretty decently before running a workshop there. Because I think when the host of a workshop really knows the location, the area down, and they're very familiar with it, I think that just really, I don't know, it's kind of impressive, but it just, you trust them a bit more, don't you?
Yes.
Like, you're taking me to a place that you really love, that you've come back here so many times, and that you know so well. So I trust you to, help me in getting some great images, I guess.
Yes. No, I agree. Well, Courtney, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. It's been really fabulous talking with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thanks for listening to this episode of the SheClicks Women in Photography podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Special thanks to everybody who sent in a question. You'll find links to Courtney's website and social media channels in the show notes. I'll be back with another episode soon, so please subscribe to the show on your favourite podcast platform and tell all your friends and followers about it. You'll also find SheClicks on Facebook, X, Instagram and YouTube if you search for SheClicksNet. So until next time, enjoy your photography.